For 2 decades, Chef Marco Alvarez had been the beating heart of La Bella Cucina, a renowned Italian restaurant nestled in a bustling urban neighborhood. His culinary journey began at a young age in a small town in Tuscany where he developed an unquenchable passion for food inspired by family gatherings filled with laughter and the aroma of freshly baked bread. After completing his prestigious training at a culinary academy in Florence, Marco ventured out into the world of gourmet cooking. Upon moving to the city, he started as a junior chef, honing his skills in various kitchens before landing at La Bella Cucina. It was here that Marco's talent truly flourished. Over the years, he transformed the restaurant's menu, introducing innovative dishes while respecting traditional recipes. Customers lined up for his signature risotto and homemade pasta. The restaurant soon became a culinary landmark, often featured in local magazines. Marco's commitment went beyond just cooking. He mentored young chefs and built a collaborative atmosphere that encouraged creativity among his team. His leadership earned him respect not just from followers but also from critics who praised his dishes as a harmonious blend of flavor and artistry. Under his influence, La Bella Cucina received numerous awards, including 2 coveted Michelin stars, which reflected both the quality of the food and the dining experience. Yet, despite these triumphs, Marco felt a growing sense of unease. The demands of maintaining such high standards took their toll on him. He often found himself caught in the crossfire between escalating expectations from management and the quest for artistic freedom. Creative ideas were increasingly stifled by corporate policies that emphasized profitability over passion. This internal conflict gnawed at him, causing sleepless nights and moments of doubt. Finally, after years of contemplation, Marco made the difficult decision to resign. It felt like a necessary step toward reclaiming his joy for cooking, a bold move after dedicating 2 decades to one establishment. With a heavy heart yet a renewed sense of purpose, he departed La Bella Cucina, leaving behind not just a legacy but an emptiness that would be hard to fill. Little did he know that this farewell would set off a chain of events that would bring an unexpected visitor back into his life soon after. As Marco navigated the bustling streets of the city in his small, well-worn car, he reflected on the myriad factors that led him to this crossroads. Each day in the kitchen was becoming a constant struggle between his desire for artistic expression and the looming pressures of corporate oversight. Once a place where creativity flourished, La Bella Cucina had escalated its focus on profitability, leaving little room for innovation. Menu changes that had once been celebrated now felt like exercises in bureaucratic red tape, dictated by upper management rather than inspired by culinary passion. Frustration bubbled within him as meetings turned into sessions of number crunching and forecasting. His ideas for new dishes, crafted from seasonal ingredients and inspired by his travels through Italy, were met with skepticism, often rewritten to better fit company-wide guidelines. Instead of collaboration, there was a growing divide between him and the owners, who envisioned La Bella Cucina primarily as a money-making enterprise rather than a space for culinary artistry. The nightly roar of customer excitement that once invigorated him began to feel hollow as he lamented the loss of spontaneity in his work. Simultaneously, there were personal aspirations tugging at his heartstrings. Marco had always dreamed of opening his own restaurant someday, one that would bear his name and allow him complete creative control. The thought lingered like a tantalizing whisper, urging him to take action. As much as he cherished La Bella Cucina, it could not be his sole canvas forever. The idea of curating menus that showcased his personality rather than adhering to external expectations ignited a fire in him that he could no longer ignore. Significantly, Marco also needed to reclaim his mental well-being. Late nights filled with stress and anxiety were taking tolls on not only his creativity but also on his health. He envisioned cooking as an act of joy, not just a professional obligation buried under demanding schedules and high-stakes reviews. With these thoughts swirling in his mind, Marco made the decision to resign, a leap toward rediscovering himself and what cooking meant to him beyond profits and performance metrics. This choice came as both a relief and a challenge. He understood the uncertainty ahead but felt an urgency to follow his passion above all else. Marco's departure from La Bella Cucina sent ripples through the restaurant, altering not only the dynamics of the kitchen but also affecting the staff and customer experiences profoundly. The moment word spread that the beloved chef had resigned, a mixture of shock and uncertainty settled over the team. Many of the younger chefs who had looked up to Marco as a mentor felt an acute sense of loss, grappling with the reality of continuing without his guidance. They often found themselves reminiscing about the late-night brainstorming sessions and culinary experiments, realizing that their collective creativity had dimmed without him. In the days following his exit, morale in the kitchen dropped noticeably. The camaraderie that had flourished under Marco's leadership was replaced by a palpable tension as the remaining staff struggled to adjust to a new routine. Recipe executions became more mechanical, lacking the flair and enthusiasm that had once characterized their service. Some team members questioned their future at La Bella Cucina, contemplating whether they could thrive in an environment now devoid of its inspirational leader. Customers, too, were quick to notice the change. Regulars who had cherished Marco's signature dishes began voicing their concerns about the quality and originality of meals. Reviews on social media shifted from raving about unforgettable culinary experiences to critical comments reflecting dissatisfaction with menu alterations that felt uninspired. For many loyal patrons, dining at La Bella Cucina became an experience marked by nostalgia for what it once was, an artistic haven led by a chef who had transformed simple ingredients into extraordinary meals. The management tried to quell the unrest by emphasizing stability during this transition period. They appointed a new head chef from within the ranks but failed to recognize that a change in leadership would not suffice to fill Marco's shoes. The new chef, while skilled, adhered strictly to corporate guidelines, further alienating both staff and customers seeking the warmth of Marco's creative touch. As weeks passed, it became clear that La Bella Cucina was facing an identity crisis. Without its cornerstone, the culinary vision and personal connection offered by Marco, the restaurant began losing its shine, prompting discussions about the long-term sustainability of operations amidst increasing competition and shifting customer loyalty. The true impact of his departure extended beyond just one individual. It unearthed fundamental questions about the place's identity and future direction. In the 2 weeks following his departure from La Bella Cucina, Marco found himself immersed in a whirlwind of emotions ranging from relief to uncertainty. Initially, he relished the freedom that came with leaving his corporate chains behind. The first few days were a welcome respite filled with leisurely mornings and the luxury of pursuing forgotten hobbies. He dusted off his old cookbooks, reconnected with the artistry of cooking, and began experimenting with new flavors in his modest kitchen. However, as the days stretched on, feelings of doubt began to creep in. Marco often pondered whether he had made the right choice. The weight of his decision loomed large over him. He questioned if he could genuinely carve out a new path in the culinary world without the support and recognition he had grown accustomed to. Memories of his time at La Bella Cucina flooded back, laughter shared with colleagues, the thrill of creation, and the applause from satisfied diners. Those moments felt bittersweet now, highlighting both his accomplishments and the void left by his absence. Amidst this reflection, inspiration struck Marco like a bolt of lightning. He envisioned opening a small bistro that would encapsulate everything he loved about food, a personal space where he could infuse global influences into classic Italian cuisine while emphasizing fresh, local ingredients. The concept was invigorating. He imagined creating a menu that told a story, each dish representing a chapter of his culinary journey. To bring this vision to life, Marco dedicated considerable time to researching potential locations and drafting business plans. He met with local farmers and suppliers who shared his passion for quality produce, conversations filled with excitement about future collaborations that would elevate his dishes. These interactions reignited his enthusiasm and reinforced his belief in community-centered dining. Yet it wasn't just about food. Marco sought to cultivate a welcoming environment that fostered creativity among aspiring chefs, akin to what he had once fostered at La Bella Cucina. He began sketching ideas for a space where culinary workshops could be held, aimed at nurturing talent and encouraging experimentation. As these thoughts crystallized into plans, Marco recognized that in reclaiming his passion for cooking, he was also piecing together not just a restaurant but a dream. A dream where he could share not just meals but stories and experiences that transcended mere dining. 2 weeks after Marco's departure, a striking luxury car glided to a stop in front of La Bella Cucina, drawing curious glances from passers-by. The sleek black vehicle seemed out of place amidst the bustling street filled with artisanal markets and cafes, but its presence carried an air of authority and intrigue. As the driver's side door swung open, out stepped Richard, Marco's former boss, the owner of the restaurant, dressed in an impeccable tailored suit that spoke to his success and stature in the culinary world. The sight of Richard stirred a whirlwind of emotions within Marco as he observed from his modest kitchen window, still grappling with his own transition. The juxtaposition of Richard's polished appearance and Marco's more casual attire, a simple shirt dusted with flour, served as a stark reminder of the corporate world he had just left behind. With measured strides, Richard approached the restaurant. His expression was serious yet contemplative, as if he were preparing himself for a conversation that could alter the course of events. A part of Marco felt a shiver of anxiety. What could Richard possibly want? Was he here to persuade him to return? Or perhaps to lay blame for the turmoil that had begun unfolding since his exit? As Richard stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted. The remaining staff stood in hushed anticipation, exchanging glances filled with uncertainty about what this visit entailed. They all knew that morale had dipped dramatically since Marco's departure, and now they faced the looming prospect of the owner's reaction to the unfolding chaos. Inside, Richard requested to speak with the newly appointed head chef but seemed distracted, his mind clearly elsewhere. The tension in the air hung heavy as whispers filled the room, and one of Marco's former colleagues couldn't help but voice concerns about whether this unexpected visit would lead to an ultimatum or perhaps even more dramatic changes. Meanwhile, Marco wrestled with curiosity and apprehension. He had spent days envisioning his own future, the bistro that would reflect his culinary philosophy. Yet now, the unexpected arrival of Richard left him torn between the past he had left behind and the future he was trying to forge. What did Richard want? Would this meeting signal a turning point for him or merely a reminder of what he had relinquished? As he pondered these questions, anticipation coursed through Marco's veins. He realized that his journey was far from over. The choices he made next could redefine not only his path but potentially influence La Bella Cucina's fate as well. After Richard entered the restaurant, Marco felt an overwhelming urge to confront the past he had left behind. Steeling himself, he made his way toward the dining area where Richard was engaged in a quiet discussion with the new head chef. The moment their eyes met, Marco's heart raced. Richard's expression was a mix of determination and apprehension, suggesting he had come to address more than just the operational chaos left in Marco's wake. Richard began with a slight hint of hesitation, his tone already signaling the gravity of the conversation. I didn't expect to see you here. Likewise, Marco replied, attempting to mask his own mix of surprise and bitterness. What brings you back? Richard took a deep breath, his gaze shifting between Marco and the kitchen staff lingering curiously nearby. I came to check on things. It's clear that my decision to promote someone from within hasn't worked out as planned. His voice carried an edge of regret that piqued Marco's interest. I'm not surprised, Marco said sharply but quickly softened his demeanor. You were prioritizing numbers over creativity. It was bound to happen. A tense silence fell between them as they both recognized the shared responsibility for La Bella Cucina's plight. The corporate ethos that had stifled creativity for too long loomed large in their minds. Richard stepped closer, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. I know I've made mistakes. I thought I could manage without you, but I see now how crucial your vision was. Marco felt the weight of those words. They echoed his own doubts about leaving but also ignited something deeper, a flicker of reconciliation. I appreciate you saying that, Richard, he replied, choosing his words carefully. But I needed to step away from a system that wasn't working for me or for the team. Taking a moment, Richard nodded as if grappling with this realization brought clarity. Maybe we both need to rethink our paths, he suggested tentatively. How would you feel about coming back? We can start fresh, find a balance between business and passion. A mixture of emotions surged through Marco, surprise at the unexpected offer and lingering doubts about returning to an environment he had fought so hard to escape. He hesitated but saw an opportunity for dialogue rather than conflict. I'll consider it, he finally said, weighing both their futures carefully against what it truly meant to lead with passion again. The air between them shifted slightly as they stood at this crossroads, past grievances mingling with newfound understanding as they navigated what reconciliation might look like for both La Bella Cucina and their own ambitions moving forward. As Marco leaned against the counter, the weight of Richard's tentative offer hung in the air, filled with potential yet fraught with uncertainty. The idea of returning to La Bella Cucina was equally tantalizing and daunting. But Richard leaned forward, urgency seeping into his tone as if sensing Marco's hesitation. Look, I know you're considering a fresh start, but what if we could make this work differently? Richard continued, his hands gesturing for emphasis. I'm not just asking you to come back as head chef. I want you to partner with me. Together, we can redefine what this restaurant stands for. Marco's heart raced at the thought. A partnership? That was an unexpected twist. It meant not only returning to a familiar kitchen but also taking a seat at the table where important decisions were made, an opportunity to help shape the restaurant's vision from within rather than just battling corporate constraints. What do you mean by partnership? Marco asked, curiosity piqued while trying to mask the excitement bubbling beneath the surface. Richard took a deep breath, clearly laying out his vision. I propose that you take on a creative director role alongside the head chef. We'll collaborate on menu innovation and re-establishing La Bella Cucina as a culinary destination. Your ideas won't be sidelined anymore, they'll lead our direction. A wave of conflicting emotions washed over Marco. The chance to influence the culinary landscape wasn't something he could dismiss lightly. The idea of having a direct hand in rebuilding the restaurant he had devoted so much of his life to lit a spark within him. Yet doubts lingered. Would Richard truly allow for the creative freedom Marco craved? From now on, Richard continued, you'll have complete autonomy over menu changes, sourcing ingredients from local farms, whatever it takes to bring back the artistry to our dishes. He paused, gauging Marco's reaction before adding, we'll even explore hosting pop-up events or themed nights that celebrate various cuisines. It'll recapture our passion and draw new customers. The potential unfolded before him like a blank canvas ready for vibrant strokes of creativity. Could this be a genuine chance for reconciliation, not just between them but for Marco's own dreams? I need time to think about it, he replied carefully, feeling the weight of this decision pressing down like mist hanging in the morning air. Richard nodded understandingly, relief flickering across his face. Of course. Just know that I believe in this vision and in you. Let's find a way forward that benefits both of us. As Richard left, Marco felt an exhilarating mix of hope and apprehension. He stood at the threshold of two paths, one leading towards his uncharted bistro dream and another toward retaining the legacy he had cultivated, but now with a chance to reshape its future alongside an old ally turned new partner in possibility. In the days following Richard's proposal, Marco found himself in a whirlwind of contemplation. The offer to return to La Bella Cucina as a creative director was enticing, yet it stirred a storm of conflicting emotions within him. He spent hours walking through the city, reflecting on the life he had left behind and the dreams he wished to pursue. Marco often revisited memories of his time at the restaurant. He recalled the laughter shared with colleagues and the satisfaction of watching young chefs flourish under his mentorship. Yet, those moments were shadowed by the frustrations that had ultimately led him to quit. The corporate constraints, the pressure to prioritize profits over creativity, and the nagging feeling of being trapped in a system that didn't celebrate his culinary passion weighed heavily on his mind. He considered what success truly meant to him. Was it about reclaiming a title or returning to a familiar kitchen, or was it about creating something uniquely his own? The vision of his bistro danced in his thoughts, a place where he could craft menus inspired by global cuisines, support local farmers, and foster a community around food. That dream invigorated him. It represented not just a professional ambition but a personal quest for fulfillment. Yet, the partnership Richard proposed came with possibilities he hadn't fully explored. The idea of shaping La Bella Cucina's future alongside someone who had once been an adversary was intriguing. Could they genuinely redefine the restaurant, infusing it with passion while balancing the demands of business? Would Richard allow Marco to maintain the creative freedom he craved? As he mulled over these questions, Marco sought advice from friends and mentors who understood the culinary world. They urged him to weigh not just the financial stability of returning to La Bella Cucina against the risks of starting anew, but also to consider where his heart truly lay. Follow your passion, one mentor advised. You have the power to create something that represents you. With every conversation, clarity slowly began to emerge. Marco realized that while the allure of partnership was strong, it needed to align with his core values and vision. He envisioned a space where culinary artistry thrived without constraints, a place where every dish told a story and every chef felt empowered. Ultimately, Marco recognized that this decision would set the course for his career and personal happiness for years to come. He embraced the weight of responsibility that came with such choices, knowing that whatever path he chose would need to resonate deeply with who he was as a chef and as an individual. As he prepared to make his final decision, he felt a renewed sense of purpose wash over him, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. In the end, Marco's journey was one of profound transformation, not just for himself but also for Richard and La Bella Cucina. The challenges they faced, both individually and collectively, had forged a deeper understanding of their roles in the culinary world. For Marco, stepping away from a stifling environment and contemplating his future allowed him to reconnect with his passion for food and what it truly meant to be a chef. He learned that creativity flourishes in spaces that prioritize artistic expression over mere profitability, and he realized the importance of following one's vision. Richard, too, emerged from this experience with valuable insights. His initial approach had been rooted in traditional business thinking, prioritizing numbers over the essence of culinary artistry. However, through his conversations with Marco and witnessing the turmoil that followed Marco's departure, he grasped the significance of nurturing creativity within his team. This realization shifted his focus from merely running a successful restaurant to fostering an environment that celebrates innovation and passion. As they stood at this crossroads, both men recognized that their futures were intertwined in ways they hadn't anticipated. If Marco decided to return to La Bella Cucina as creative director, it would not only be a second chance for him but also an opportunity for Richard to support a culinary vision that celebrated community and artistry. They could redefine the restaurant together, transforming it into a space where chefs felt empowered to experiment and customers could experience the joy of artistry on their plates. Conversely, if Marco chose to pursue his own bistro, he would carry forward the lessons learned during this tumultuous period. He envisioned creating a vibrant community hub, one that championed local ingredients and diverse culinary influences. By doing so, he would not only fulfill his dream but also serve as an inspiration for other young chefs seeking their own paths. Regardless of Marco's decision, both he and Richard had been irrevocably changed by this experience. They had learned the value of open dialogue and reconciliation, recognizing that collaboration could lead to a brighter future in the culinary landscape. As they parted ways once more, each man felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were no longer just chef and employer, but two individuals committed to ensuring that passion and creativity remained at the heart of their endeavors. The lessons they had learned would resonate throughout their careers, influencing how they approached food, leadership, and collaboration in all future endeavors. The culinary world awaited them both, each on their respective paths, ready to embrace new possibilities born from their shared journey of growth and understanding. The journey of Chef Marco Alvarez offers rich lessons that extend beyond the culinary world, touching on themes of loyalty, ambition, and the often unpredictable nature of career changes. His decision to leave La Bella Cucina after 20 years exemplifies the struggle many face when confronted with environments that become restrictive due to corporate demands. This resonates with individuals in various fields who sometimes find themselves stifled by organizational structures that prioritize profit over passion. Marco's story highlights the importance of staying true to one's values and aspirations. When he chose to prioritize his mental well-being and artistic integrity over a steady position, it marked a significant act of self-advocacy. This kind of boldness is paramount not just in the culinary arts but in any career path. Recognizing when to pivot and pursue what truly ignites one's passion can lead to profound personal and professional fulfillment. Moreover, the dynamic between Marco and Richard illustrates how relationships can evolve through challenging experiences. Initially positioned as adversaries within a corporate framework, they grew to understand each other's perspectives and motivations, ultimately finding common ground. Their reconciliation emphasizes that open communication and understanding can transform former conflicts into opportunities for collaboration. It reflects the broader truth that loyalty to one's vision does not have to come at the expense of relationships. Rather, it can foster deeper partnerships built on mutual respect and shared goals. The evolution of La Bella Cucina serves as a reminder that businesses, like individuals, must adapt or risk stagnation. Richard's willingness to embrace change after recognizing its necessity showcases the potential for positive transformation in leadership roles. By giving Marco a platform for creative expression, he learned that fostering an innovative environment might yield richer rewards than simply adhering to traditional business practices. Ultimately, Marco's choices signal a fundamental truth about ambition. Pursuing one's dreams often requires courage and sacrifice and can lead one down unexpected but rewarding paths. Whether it's embracing a new role within a familiar establishment or branching out on one's own with a new venture, these decisions shape not only individual careers but also influence those around them. In a world filled with uncertainties and challenges, both Marco and Richard emerged from their experiences with valuable insights into creativity, collaboration, and their commitment to cultivating environments where passionate pursuits thrive. This journey encourages others grappling with similar dilemmas to reflect on their passions deeply, advocate for themselves boldly, and remain open to the transformative possibilities that arise when they choose authenticity over convenience.